This lecture will cover strings in Java programming. You will learn string definition, string operations, and string manipulation. Refer to the internet and search for Java strings for more information. A string is an array of characters. Arrays are wrapped inside a class in Java. We will learn more about arrays in the future. When you name your string variables, you want to use the prefix str. Here is an example of how to declare a string in Java. You have the string name and the initial value after the equal sign followed by the semicolon. Here are the examples of string declaration. We will use some of the common string operations such as concatenation, append, length, and charAt. Here is how you concatenate two strings together in Java. You have the target variable on the left side of the equal sign, and the plus sign ties the two strings together as shown in the string example on the screen. Be sure to refer to the example programs provided in this lecture. The plus equal operator can be used to do an append to a string. Refer to the example of adding AND information technology to the variable as shown on the screen. The length function will return the length of a string. In this example, the output returns 12 since Love CSTCC contains 12 characters. Notice how the string length is a function, but for arrays it is a property, and properties do not have the parentheses. Be sure to refer to the example code provided in this lecture. Use the charAt function to return the character at a specific index. Remember, the index starts at 0. In this example, we want to obtain the character at index value 2 in the string of I love Java. Line 18 on the screen will show you the uppercase L. I do want to note charAt is read-only, so you cannot use this for string manipulation. This slide demonstrates how to combine the length function and the charAt function to get every character in the string. You can use a for loop to print the contents of the string. The output of this program is on the right side of the screen. The for loop is printing each letter of the string on the console line, and you can see that in lines 18, 19, 20, and 21. The charAt method will throw an IndexOutOfBoundsException if the index passed into the method is less than 0 or greater than the length of the string. Therefore, you need to do boundary checking so you can avoid this type of error. Methods are used to keep your code organized. You must enclose methods inside your program in curly brackets. And we do this to keep the methods separate from our main method. Methods that return a value have a return type, obviously a method name, and if required, a value being passed into the method, and you can see this on the screen with the color coding I have here. See the example of total amount? This is returning an integer value of total pay and receiving an integer value of hours. And you're going to see more methods in the future as we do our string manipulation exercises. You should complete the exercises in this presentation to gain an understanding of how to do string manipulation. I will cover some coding examples in Eclipse in a separate video. I'd suggest watching this entire video first, then go back, pause the video, and try to complete the exercises before reviewing the Eclipse coding video. In exercise 1, we are going to write a program that takes a string as a parameter and counts the number of vowels, A, E, I, O, U, in a string, and this program will return the total. Create a method called countVowelsInString that receives a string parameter. Be sure to count both upper and lowercase vowels. Call the method from the main method. Print the total in the main method. Your main method needs to declare the variables, call the countVowelsInString method, and return the output. Here is a template for the countVowelsInString method. This will return an integer value. Exercise 2. Let's create another method called findLetterInString that receives a string and a character as parameters. This method will return the index value of where the character exists in the string. Return a -1 if the letter is not in the string. Refer to the example on the screen. See if you can create this program using the template on this screen. Here is the template for the findLetterInString method. Exercise 3. Create another method called countLetterInString that receives a string and a character as the parameters. This method will return the total number of times the character appears in the string. Return a -1 if the letter is not in the string. Be sure to call this method from the main method and print the total in the main method. Refer to the example on the screen. Use this example to complete your code. This will use a for loop to check each letter in the string. The index starts at 0 and will continue as long as the index value is less than the string length. The index will be incremented by 1. Exercise 4. Let's create another method called left that receives a string and an integer as the parameters. This method will return a substring of the string parameter for the length parameter. Be sure to do the boundary checking for the length. Refer to the example on the screen. Use the template to create the program. This includes boundary checking. If the left length is less than 0, the left length needs to be set to 0. If the left length exceeds the length of the string, set the left length value to the length of the string. This logic will avoid the IndexOutOfBoundsException. Exercise 5. Create another method called write that receives a string and an integer as the parameters. This method will return a write substring of the string parameter for the length parameter. Be sure to do boundary checking for the length. Refer to the example on the screen. Use this template to create your method. Be sure to do boundary checking. Exercise 6. Create another method called VBSubstring that receives a string, a start integer index, and a length integer as parameters. This method will return a substring of the string parameter starting from the index parameter for the length parameter value. Be sure to do boundary checking for the start index and the length. Refer to the example on the screen. Use this template to create your program. If the start index is less than 0, set it to 0. If the start index is greater than the string length, set the start index to the length of the string. If the substring length is less than 0, set the substring length to 0. If the substring length is greater than the string length, set the length to the length of the string. Exercise 7. Create another method called Java substring that receives a string, a start index integer, and a stop index integer as parameters. This method will return a substring of the string parameter starting from the index parameter to the stop index parameter value. Be sure to do boundary checking for the start index and the stop index. Refer to the example on the screen. Use this template to create your program. Be sure to include boundary checking in the method. Exercise 8. Create another method that takes two string parameters and compares them. It will return a true if the strings are the same and a false if they are not. Refer to the example on the screen. Use this template to create your program. Use a for loop to compare each character in the strings. Exercise 9. Create a method called CountWordsInString that receives a string as a parameter, and this will count the number of words in the string and return a total. Do not count the spaces, only count the words. Call the method from the main method and print the total in the main method. Refer to the example on the screen. Use this template to create the program. Be sure to pass in the following: an empty string, all spaces, a space with a letter with a space, spaces and a letter and spaces, and spaces with letters where the spacing is inconsistent. The CountWordsInString method should check for the start of a word, which is a space followed by a letter, and it should check for the end of a word, which is a letter followed by a space. And this is the end of our exercises for string manipulation. Now, let's take a moment to review the questions on the screen. Let's take a moment to review the answers on the screen. To summarize this lecture, a string is an array of characters wrapped inside a class. You can manipulate strings using concatenation, using append, the Java string length method, and the charAt method. And this concludes our lecture. Thanks, and see you next time.